Good afternoon. I'm Commissioner Tommy Calvert, and I'm very honored to be joined alongside Bexar County Judge Nelson Wolff, Congressman Henry Cuellar, and coming in just a few minutes, we'll also have Congressman Joaquin Castro, really to give us some updates on the stimulus package, what's in it for individuals and families, businesses, local governments, educational institutions. There's a lot that's going on. We're going to jump right in to County Judge Nelson Wolff. Many people may not realize that the county is an arm of the state, and in emergencies, the county judge, along with the public health authority, is really at the forefront of emergencies, disasters, we're very fortunate to have his leadership. Having served as mayor, he understands the needs of the city and municipalities, but he also has an understanding of areas that don't have the protections of a city. He understands, as someone who served in the state Senate, the powers of the state. And so we have someone very uniquely poised to lead us as the county judge. He's been updating, I think, every day just about with the latest on information. So, Judge, I wanted to give you some time right now to tell our Congress folks, before they begin and really take over the show, what you need their help with and where we're at today. Thank you, Judge.
Well, first of all, Tommy, thank you for setting up this conference, and thank Congressman Cuellar for being here today. And then later, Congressman Castro, I think, will be joining you. Just a couple of quick facts, and Congressman, so that you'll be up to date on it. As of yesterday, we have 157 confirmed cases. We have 5 deaths that have occurred already. And so we really are working hard to get our hospital system up and going and making sure we'll be able to handle the influx that may occur. To give you an example, at our Bexar County Hospital, we have 161 beds open and available for patients. Out of those 161, we have 57 ICUs, and then we have 104 ventilators, 77 which are available. So we can handle a normal load, but if we get a spike, we may have a real problem. With that in view, we're setting up a field hospital out at the Bexar County grounds. We have 175 acres there. We have about 350,000 square feet of exhibit halls, and then we have the Coliseum and we have the AT&T Center. So in one of the exhibit halls, we are setting up a field hospital to be able to handle any overflow that we might have. So we're doing everything we can to be prepared. Our citizens are responding. They are staying home where they're in a safe environment. And we've just got a great team working between the city and the county and all of our efforts. We're going to be launching a new effort later on today. And I've asked Commissioner Calvert to be a co-chair of one of the key committees that we'll be working on. So we're all getting organized and making sure that we are doing everything we can to protect our citizens. So I'm going to be listening to you, Congressman Cuellar. At some point, I'll have to sign off because I've got to be at a couple of other places. So thank you very much, Tommy.
Thank you, Judge. Appreciate you being on the call and all the hard work you're putting in, a lot of hours that people are putting in. So before I introduce Congressman Cuellar, I just want to make a couple of introductory comments. I think all of us can agree, never in probably 100 years have our lives been so disrupted around the world. Never have I had so many calls and text messages about people being scared about the public health issues and how to live under the orders that they're at. Never before have I had as many text messages about foreclosures and issues of being able to pay the rent. What I would say to my friends across both aisles in Washington is that our greatest need is really to transition from business as usual to, frankly, a disaster economy. Like President Franklin Delano Roosevelt with the WPA program, we can retrain them to assist with providing reports to elected leaders on critical statistics around our hospitals and locations of outbreaks, and assisting with providing information to communities hardest hit on how to better follow better sanitation guidelines. I've spent a lot of time identifying local manufacturers of personal protective gear, ventilators and pharmaceuticals. I think we're learning right now that maybe shipping everything overseas was not the best thing, that maybe we need to get back to having some presence of manufacturing in America, in Texas, to service our Texas families. Grants could be potentially commingled from the federal, state, and local levels to take the unemployed people and transition them to make personal protective gear or manufacture pharmaceuticals or manufacture ventilators. Food shortages could come as travel disruptions take place. This is our first wave. We may have a second wave that comes in the cold months in September, October, and through the next spring. And then there could be additional waves of the COVID-19. We may be battling this for some time. We want to be able to let you all at the federal level know, Congressman, that the local governments are a big part of stabilizing the economy. But even us, when we tell people you don't have to pay your taxes or things like that, we're so uncertain about where our budgets are going to be going forward. I know you've got some aid that you can talk about. One of the hardest working men in Washington, I give you your Congressman, Henry Cuellar.
Commissioner, first of all, I want to thank you for taking the leadership on this, for setting this up. I think this is so important. So I really applaud your leadership, your role, your office staff for putting this together. So thank you so much for doing this. I also want to thank Judge Wolf. I know we called each other over the weekend, and just want to say, Judge, you've been around and you know how to get things done. So I want to thank you for your work, and of course, Commissioner, for your work also. I also want to thank my colleagues from San Antonio. So what do we do right now? First of all, Commissioner and Judge, we're going to do what our health care providers tell us to do. We stay home, we stay home. People take this seriously, take this very seriously, and we will do that. In the meanwhile, I'll tell you what we're doing at the federal government. At the federal government, as you know, we have passed 3 different pieces of legislation. The first 2 were basically health, making sure that we get the money for research, and make sure we get the money for the healthcare providers. This last one was a little different because this provided $2 trillion. I sit on the Appropriations Committee, and I'm telling you, I've never seen anything like this before, but it's very different times, Commissioner. It's very different time, Judge. So we put monies in there. We got to get our team now to go after that money. $2 trillion is a lot of money, and we got to make sure that the Bexar County and the area there get the money. Millions and millions of dollars. And we will get that information. And again, that money will go directly to the county, directly to the city of San Antonio, plus city of Laredo, city of Mission, county of Hidalgo. And those monies will be announced in a day or 2. I got those numbers now.
Is that on internet, Congressman? Internet connection?
That is correct.
Yeah.
I will get you that info. I'll get you that money, because we're putting money. I think what's going to happen, Commissioner, this thing is going to change how we work. We're doing Zoom. We're going to see a lot of telemedicine. We're going to see a lot of distance learning, and I'll talk about monies coming to our schools and universities. It's going to change things the way, a lot of things we've done in the past. That's to make sure, Judge and Commissioner, that our food supply stays stable. The state of Texas is an agricultural state. We produce a lot, whether we make tortillas in Corpus Christi, or where we get strawberries from Poteet, or we get citrus fruits from the valley, or wheat or corn from different parts of the state of Texas. We produce, but at the same time, we get a lot of things from our friends from Mexico. My understanding was that the governor first let out about 25%. I don't know if that has changed, but the governor has to get that out as soon as possible. Money is not the issue.
Congressman Castro, before you came on, I think I'm going to talk about the committees that you sit on as I introduce you, but I think one thing I didn't mention that I'd like you to hear is just, our systems are, about to become overwhelmed. And if we don't stop the disease, it's very important, as we have multiple years potentially that we're fighting this coronavirus, that we transition workers into the jobs of public health, transition companies, as Congressman Cuellar said, using the Defense Production Act. And it's part of the disaster economy. I think we have a disaster economy that we have to transition people to be able to do these needs. We need to help local governments not have to lay off workers and stimulate our economy as well. So Congressman Castro, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Let me add something real quick. I think where we could use some extra help there, Tommy, with respect to that, through Bibliotech, we're loaning out hotspots. All of them are gone already. We're loaning out readers that they can take home that gives them internet connections. We're on some school buses. So if any of those internet funds can come to help us get out more of those hotspots and to help people be able to connect at home to the internet, that would help us immediately.
Yeah, I think
I've got a quick question here.
We're going to hold off on questions for just a little bit until we can get Congressman Castro to finish his briefing.
Thank you, Tommy, and everybody on the call, County Judge Wolf and Clayton Perry over at City Hall, for all the work that you're doing and keeping people informed, but also enacting good legislative policy right now to help people that are going through an unprecedented situation in our community and in our country. I know that Henry, and thank you to Henry for all his work on the Appropriations Committee, he covered a lot of the numbers in terms of what the Congress appropriated through this last big bill, this CARES Act. But I wanted to go over just a few things. Over the last several days, my office has received probably by now about 1,500 phone calls over the last week. As you can imagine, a lot of people are frustrated because they're trying to apply for unemployment. There were 150,000 unemployment claims in Texas over the past week, 3.3 million in the country, which is just unprecedented, even larger than the Great Depression. So there's a lot of frustration over that. The Texas Workforce Commission is working hard to catch up. As you can imagine, they're overwhelmed with what's going on. The governor to do that, or over to the Workforce Commission so that they can handle and process those claims. But wanted to go through a few of the most frequently asked things that we're seeing in our office. One of them is with employees in different industries, particularly in the service sector industry, getting zeroed out by employers. So in other words, you're not getting officially terminated, but your employer is zeroing out your timesheet for the next week or 2 weeks or the next month. And people are finding that puts them in a limbo in terms of claiming unemployment. You should still be able to receive unemployment or partial unemployment benefits if you're in that situation. So please reach out to the Workforce Commission. If not, reach out to one of your elected officials, either Tommy or Clayton or the county judge or myself. If you're in my district, which is the west side, the northwest side, the south side of town, I'm at 210-348-8216. We got a lot of questions about college students and whether they'll get refunds for any part of the money that they've paid because colleges and universities have basically shut down except for distance learning. And most of the systems now are giving a refund for housing credits or housing money that was paid over. For example, we worked through a few cases where people were concerned about losing the rent money that they had basically paid for or committed to pay for April and May, for example. I imagine that you all have gone over the fact now that the Texas Supreme Court froze evictions at least well into April, so that a landlord can start the evictions process, but they can't physically remove you or complete the evictions process until at least that time. Also, a few days ago, the Public Utilities Commission of Texas froze people getting cut off from their utilities, which is also a great thing because, as people don't have money coming in, there's no way for them to pay rent and all of these other things. I would imagine, I jumped on when Henry was in the middle of his discussion, but I imagine he spoke also about the increase in unemployment compensation for Americans and also the $1,200 stipend for Americans plus $500 per child. And so that's going to be very important as people need all the resources that they can get. Just a few more things. We've also gotten calls from people who have said that their employer is not providing, that they're expected in their job to be around people and to service folks, but their employer is not providing the protective gear that they would need to stay safe. If that's an issue, please call the non-emergency number, the city's non-emergency number, to let them know, or call one of your elected officials. We've also gotten complaints of businesses that are open that shouldn't be open, given the city and the county's ordinance or order that was passed, directive that was issued by the county judge and by the mayor. Again, call the non-emergency number. I think it was in the newspaper today that they've already gotten a bunch of calls, or call one of your elected officials. Certainly you can call my office to let me know. But however we can be helpful in the coming days, I know that this is a stressful and anxious time for everyone. I expect that the Congress will pass another stimulus package, coronavirus relief package in the coming weeks or the coming months. One of the things that I would like to see, there are a few things I'd like to see that were not included in the bills that have passed so far, but one of them is hazard pay for the essential workers, the healthcare workers, the first responders, the grocery store workers, and others who are making sure that all of us are being able to go to the grocery store and get what we need, or go see a doctor, go to the hospital, keeping us safe on the streets, a hazard pay stipend for those folks. So with that, Tommy, I want to say thank you for having me on, for everything that you're doing. I'm going to have to leave y'all. I apologize. As you can imagine, everything that was scheduled as an in-person meeting before has now turned into a phone call or teleconference, and I have to join another one. But please know that I'm at your disposal for whatever our office can do.
Thank you.
Congressman Castro, thank you for everything you're doing. And by the way, be sure and call the police department or the sheriff's office. I think we've responded now between both offices close to 500 calls of some businesses that are not supposed to be open. And by and large, they've been able to go out there and get an agreement with them not to do it. In other words, we've not had to arrest them or fine them. So be sure and have your constituents call either the sheriff or the police department.
Congressman, we're going to get to Clayton Perry's question, but before I do, I would just want to say that, as you know, in the recession of 2008, local governments, the county had the good vision to do $500 million in flood control projects, which provided tens of thousands of construction jobs. But right now we're telling people they don't have to pay their taxes, so our revenues are not necessarily coming in. So just keep an eye on us, because we can stimulate in partnership with the federal government, but we right now we're in a real point of that we've not been in. So Councilman Perry, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tommy. And again, thank you for putting this together. This is great, really good input. Question is to Congressman Cuellar, and thank you very much for all the statistics and the dollar amounts and all the different programs that we're going to be eligible for. What we would really, or what I would really like to see, is like a spreadsheet developed on each particular category, and then who's eligible for what money, whether it's the county or the city, who has the action that needs to apply for that, and what application procedure is there, what do you have to put together in order to apply for those funds, because I'm assuming we're going to have to do some kind of application for each and every dollar and some way to track it, and it would be great for a single source to be able to put all that down line item by line item on an Excel spreadsheet or whatever, to show what the programs are, how much it's worth, who has the action item, and what has to be done in order to apply for those funds. So that would be a big help to us, to kind of show us the way of what we need to do, both at the county level and the city, or as a partnership.
Super comment. I know him, Congressman Cuellar is super at using .gov, Suffolk's website search engine for grants. But any thoughts about that, Congressman Cuellar?
Yeah.
Hey, just real quick, Tom. I've got to sign off and get to City Hall, and I'll follow up with you and get the balance of it. So thanks, Congressman Cuellar and Congressman Castro and yourself for putting this together. I got to get over and meet with the mayor.
Your distance away, Judge.
Great. And just to follow up with that, I think what the judge is going to is a meeting with the mayor where we're actually going to be establishing committees, joint committees between the county and the city to do exactly that, take on the responsibilities of who's going to do what, and how we're going to get to the actual money flowing into the county or the cities. Okay.
Councilman, thank you for that operational, because that's really rubber meets the road. We need to know operationally how we're going to do this. And I think that just so that Congressman Cuellar knows, last weekend I had asked our Intergovernmental Affairs Department to begin preparing our grant proposals. And I have actually, with the court, we expedited a number of capital improvement projects to get the engineering done, because we remember the shovel ready call that happened several years ago. So we are pushing engineering and architecture forward as quickly as possible so that we can have projects. We've got urban farms that can be built, all those kinds of things. So to that end, I have Cecilia Castellano. She's a small business person. She has a comment. If you'd like to give a question or a comment, you can do so on the chat. I'll let our elected officials chime in a moment, but here's what she said to you, Congressman. She said, we need the money as small business people, but the paperwork is the same as if we were not in a disaster. How can this be changed and easier for small businesses to apply for?
She's absolutely right. Without due respect to SBA, they probably don't have the personnel to do that. So we're trying to find a way to help get that assistance out as soon as possible. I agree that the bureaucracy gets in the way. This is something that, I've always said, hey, can we put it in a 1 page instead of 10 pages? Can we put it in plain English instead of putting it in all of this legalese? So we will be happy to do this. I know I've been working with the Chamber of Commerce. I will send you this. That is a little checklist, a kit for small businesses. So I will send both to you and the commissioner. It's a small, councilman, small business guide and checklist by the U.S. Chamber that goes over it step by step and what's assisted. But we will work with you, and I don't disagree with that small business owner. They need the money now. They don't need it in 2, 3, 4, 5 months. So I have no disagreement what she's saying. And this is one thing that I asked is, can we streamline the process? Can we act? Can we protect the taxpayers' dollars, but at the same time, move it out to the small businesses that need the money now and not 2, 3, 4, 5 months from now?
Or maybe we let local governments assist if SBA is backed up. I don't know. So Pastor Gavin Rogers is on the, he has the pastoral privilege. If you want to come back live, he's got a few comments about the homeless and community and how we're getting laid off, industry staff to help prepare meals. We're working with city officials to create social distancing. Pastor Rogers, do you want to say, if you want to unmute, go ahead.
All right, thanks. Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so normally when we serve the homeless, especially in downtown San Antonio, we had the homeless come to us either at Travis Park Church or at CAM, Christians Assistant Ministries, or other locations downtown. But now that we can't do that, Corazon Ministries, which is a part of Travis Park Church, is figuring out a way. We're working with the city and the Department of Human Services. We're working with Centro downtown, and we've started taking our meals to go to various places around downtown to spread out the homeless population as best as we can. Eventually, there'll be hubs around the city for the homeless that will support those meals too, as well. And so what we've been doing now in the last week is trying to find restaurant staff that have been laid off and maybe not making an hourly income, and supplementing them with the opportunity to prepare some of the meals that we take out to go. They can prepare them at their restaurant. We go pick them up in our van, and Centro escorts us around so that we can create social distancing. And that provides a little income for some of the restaurant workers who normally aren't working right now. So we're getting all that together. Right now, we're serving 4 times a week for Corazon, but other places are doing similar activities. And about a week from now, we'll be 7 days a week with restaurants supplementing the preparation of that food safely, and the food bank providing those meals to the homeless. So obviously this is a changing target. We're gonna follow CDC protocol as best as possible and listen to the voices at DHS and places like Haven for Hope, who are trying to figure out the best process for the homeless. There's other plans to quarantine people who are in the homeless community at various places. But we still have to figure out how to serve meals to people who are very hungry, and yet need to put them in places to spread out, whether that's various parks or hub stations around the city.
You know, Pastor, those are questions and thoughts I hadn't. I mean, you think about in the way you're on the ground, and as we said throughout this video, diversity often brings innovation. So thank you for innovating, because I think you're creating the model that governments are going to have to follow in food distribution, and that problem's probably going to become worse. We're just starting this recession, and this thing could last 2 years. You know, people ask me, when can we come out of our house? I say, look, we may have another wave of this in the fall. You know, we may get a reprieve by July, but what this is doing for collapse of the economy, people are having a hard time coming to grips with our new reality. But you all are going to be a very important part of keeping civil unrest from overwhelming local government. So thank you. We're going to need your prayers. So let me move on to Beverly Watts Davis, because we're going to try to wrap up the call, the video teleconference in a few minutes. But Beverly Watts Davis is the former director of substance abuse mental health, former drug czar for the federal government in charge of U.S. policy drug prevention. And she said that the funding that the county gave to I actually think you mean the formerly Axion, Texas, now called Lyft for business loans, excludes nonprofits, which also are businesses. Can this decision be revisited? I will say that the judge and I did give direction to Lyft fund to include nonprofits. So thank you for telling me that that was not included in the criteria. That is their oversight. We did intend for nonprofits to be eligible for those funds. So we'll revisit that. Any other questions? Elected officials or chamber leaders that are on this call, business people? I see one. Okay, so Beverly also commented, the fastest and most efficient way for the federal government to get funding out will be through state block grants. Can we help the county get ready for this? Amen. I think that may be true. And leaders like you who actually operate the bureaucracy of the federal government, when you were in Washington, executive branch, you know where the plugs are. So we're going to rely on you to work with Congressman Cuellar and others to get this funding out with the administrative support that may be necessary.
You know, I'm worried that if they run out of equipment, you know, who's going to take care of the people that are sick? So that
has not gotten to Bexar County, by the way. I've had nurses and doctors frantic. We've created 3D printing machines to print the protective face gear. We've got a grassroots effort of children sewing masks. Whatever gear the governor has, I'm not seeing it here. We need all the help we can get.
Yeah, and I think we all need to push the governors, the emergency, because from what I understand from my health care provider, my local healthcare director, he said that out of whatever the federal government sent, the governor only initially let out 25% of what he got. You know, hey, we're under an emergency. He needs to release all of it, and we're going to send more. We put an additional $16 billion. So we've been stockpiling that for an emergency, and without due respect to the state government, we got to release that.
Congressman, thank you. As you go into that meeting, I want you to know that an ER doctor told me that their models, they have artificial intelligence models based upon how many COVID-19 folks that are coming in. They expect that by April 4th, we'll see a 200 to 400% increase to our hospitals. So we're about in the next 4 weeks about to see an apex of strain on the hospitals. That's why we're setting up the Bexar County Coliseum Expo Hall as another hospital. So this protective gear, you're absolutely correct, is needed now as we go through probably the first wave. So do your thing. I want to thank everybody for coming in on this particular call. I see those other chats that are coming on the right. We'll get responses. Congressman, we'll do this again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.